Night one of WrestleMania is in the books. John Pollock here alongside Neal Flanagan, and here we are to go through the first of two nights of WrestleMania from Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. Back for the second night in a row. He is Neal Flanagan, the man that is taking us well into the early hours of Sunday morning in Northern Ireland, but the man, a ton of pep in his step, and here he is to chat all things WrestleMania. How are you, Neal?
I'm great, John, and I do want to say just very quickly at the start, I know I enjoy being your wingman. I'll be back next Friday for SmackDown, and you and I've still got the book club to go this month as well, but this is my big WrestleMania moment, so thank you very much to you and to A for letting me have that. And I'm sure your energy levels are, well, you've had quite a week, John, but I'm sure when you see your old sparring partner tomorrow night, Way, that'll give you a bit of a kick.
Well, I feel a little underprepared here that I don't have a video to play where we can juxtapose Neal's promos of today with that of 20 years ago and get a local band to play you out here for your big WrestleMania main event, because even night one, you're main eventing here at Post Wrestling. So
awesome.
We thank you very much. The whole team, I just want to say off the top, has been fantastic all week long, just killing it on the site with the shows from John Cena, Kate from Montreal, John Kleinchester, Andrew Thompson, John Cena, everybody, Jack Wannon. Everyone's been pitching in a huge amount. And yes, we will be back again the same time tomorrow night, right after night two, with Wei Ting joining me as well. And I've got to say, Neal, that I had set this YouTube stream to start, I think, at like 15 past midnight Eastern time. So maybe I was really overestimating just how long this Mania show would be, because I know I am the resident complainer of length of shows, and there will be plenty to talk about from this show. But in terms of just, I have no problem with a night of WrestleMania clocking in at about 4 hours. That is a totally reasonable time, even if we're doing it on back-to-back nights. So I thought, in that sense, it was earlier than I thought we'd be chatting on this Saturday night.
You and me both. I had this pegged for maybe 4.5 minimum, and more likely 5. So it was a pleasant surprise that we got through the matches as quickly as we did.
Well, we do also have a lot to talk about. They did a 3-hour pre-show, and there was quite a lot of news coming out of this. And we're going to start with what is really a very significant story. So earlier in the day, WrestleVotes was the first outlet to report about what appeared to be a joint show between AAA and NXT. Like, they'd be doing a Worlds Collide show. And that was kind of the extent of it. And then on the broadcast during the pre-show, all of a sudden I'm taking my notes, and I see Vikingo, and I very noticeably see Marcela Pena and Dorian Roldan, who are there. I was like, this seems like a lot for a joint show we're going to do. And with that, Michael Cole announces that WWE has acquired AAA. And they were flanked by pretty much most of your lucha talent in WWE. And very clearly they see Vikingo, who is no longer El Hijo del Vikingo. It seems like he is just Vikingo now. Yeah. Looks to be, their prime star that they see in AAA. But this is huge news when you are taking one of the two major companies that has a 33-year history in the market in Mexico, and WWE is buying it. And I think that it certainly does tell you the kind of the mindset that WWE has, that as much as TKO on a lot of these calls, they have shied away. Like, we're not doing any mergers and acquisitions for this whole boxing thing. There's no capital we're putting in. And granted, I'm sure the expenditure for a AAA is it's not going to be a crazy number, I'm sure, that they're spending for this, but it is very indicative of the fact that they are in acquisition mode for territories that they feel are ripe for such a acquisition. And we should also mention the fact that it was stated that they are in partnership with Mexican-based sports and entertainment company Philip, which they did have their representative there, Alberto Fasha Cohen, who this is a group of, it's a relatively new company, just doing some limited research tonight on them, that they just are private investors that had, it sounds like they already had affiliations with Triple A, but they were obviously key to brokering this deal with WWE. But many questions that come out of this. I mean, this would be something I really hope we get some more information on, even out of the press conference tonight or some formal press conference in Mexico that follows this, because you're going to have a lot of questions when it comes to talent. Is this an outright 100% control WWE has? Are Triple A staying on as minority partners in this? Like, there's a lot of questions to it, but I mean, you cannot underscore just how important this is going to be in terms of an announcement, and what it also could be just setting a example of if WWE is thinking this way.
Yeah, it's interesting, and it goes very interesting, and goes back to something that we talked about in passing last night in our news segment, which was that Triple H was saying, and I'm going to say it correctly tonight, global localization is still alive, and it looks like it is. I like you, really want to see some facts and figures about this. Is it an outright full 100% acquisition? My knowledge of AAA is somewhat limited, I've got to admit. It's not a promotion I consume very much of. I've seen a couple of Triple Mania shows and so on, but I wasn't too aware of its ownership, apart from the Pena family and whatnot. But yes, very intriguing to see where this goes. And I've seen a lot of mixed reaction online, on Reddit and in our own Discord, just to get a bit of temperature from people who do follow the product, whether they think it's, this is a net negative or positive thing, and a lot of mixed opinions on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's one that, I mean, certainly you're looking at this from the perspective, like just the general reaction I saw throughout the day was a lot of enthusiasm for a co-promoted show that you would be seeing AAA talent with NXT, WWE talent. There's a lot of interesting stuff you could do for a one-off show. I think there was a bit more resistance, at least that I saw, among this idea of WWE coming in and acquiring AAA. And this is, if you are AAA, certainly you're partnering with the big muscle that is WWE and TKO, but many questions about talent, certainly. I mean, their mega champion is Alberto El Patron, who you would certainly be at the top of people's list. There is Quattrero, who, I mean, if people have not followed his story with Stephanie Vaquer, this was someone that was charged with femicide, and is like someone that you would certainly be looking at with that domestic violence charge that he had last year. That one comes to mind. There's the TV situation. There's just the fact that we look at Mexico being this battleground. You have AEW partnering with CMLL, and you have AAA now with WWE, and Conan's status as a booker with all of this. I mean, there's so many questions. The one clear statement or fact that they conveyed was that there will be this show June the 7th, Worlds Collide, at the Kia Forum in LA, that Paul Levesque watched the very first one with in Brian Pillman's apartment. Yeah. They ordered it on pay-per-view.
I mean, we're in the realms of speculation here, but I do wonder, do they keep it pretty much as it is? It's got TV deals. I believe it's fairly popular. It turns a profit, and they just handpick who they want for various shows that are going to be in the mold.
My thought would be you are buying this with the infrastructure that is already there, and people that do understand the market. And I know that, AAA is not the most smoothly run company, but in terms of running in Mexico, I would not just want to be tabbing people that are living in the US working for WWE and throwing them into understanding this culture and running it. But inevitably there's going to be turnover, and WWE, over time, wanting to present this product in the way that they are feeling is going to be most palatable for television and for what they want out of this. They are investing in this, and they are going to, there is a strategic reason for this for WWE, and whether this is a pipeline for NXT talent to go back and forth to get your talent over with the library that they have access to, you can see why WWE would be interested in this. I can understand why both parties are interested in this. The long-term health for the industry is one that you will question, but
Sure.
I mean, it does come to mind when we're talking about the status of a lot of these Japanese promotions. And we know WWE has kicked the tires over the years about companies and potentially acquiring them as well. Like, is this now suddenly we are going for this kind of, like, as we talked about last night, instead of these performance centers, it's partnering up or outright buying these companies that already have their infrastructure in place, and we can just underwrite them and put our changes to those products for these different markets.
Yeah, and again, it's into the realms of speculation, but I've heard a lot of chat on the heels of this announcement about Noah perhaps being next up and so on. So yes, this could be the new global localization, buying going concerns rather than setting up new performance centers across the world.
Yeah, I'm sure we will have more on this in the next day or so, and I think this will be one of the big topics coming out of this weekend. As much as the WrestleMania stuff is, like, to me, this to me is, of anything this weekend that has long-term impact, this is at the top of that list.
I think, John, just one final thing. It was, to me, that stuck out was it wasn't just left onto the kickoff show. This was highlighted during the main WrestleMania show as well. So clearly they're not being at all shy about it or trying to sort of keep it on the down low.
I mean, you had on-screen time for Marcela Pena, for Dorian Roldan. Like, they were showing there in the crowd. And of course, like, we have, just the timing of all of this. And I know people are thinking, well, they saw that AEW is going to Arena Mexico, and you're not pulling off a deal like this on a couple days' notice or anything like this. I'm sure this has been in talks for a while. But yeah, you do have that as AEW is trying to navigate the market. Like, this is our next WWE AEW battleground is Mexico, and WWE is really sinking its teeth in with ownership in a significant way. So that was the top story, at least from the most of the pre-show portion. We also got the update throughout the pre-show that Rey Mysterio, at first in the pre-show, this was interesting, Michael Cole had stated, this might have been in the first hour, that Mysterio is a game-time decision after this injury on SmackDown. And before this pre-show was over, he was not cleared and would be replaced by Rey Fenix. So they did, correct me if you heard, but it appeared, we're just going based on what we saw. Ray did say, it came at the hands of Julius Creed. I'm pretty sure it's the spot we isolated last night because that was pretty much the only physicality, but didn't actually state what the injury was. I'm thinking that if it was a game time decision, it's not something like, he tore his ACL or anything that would require surgery. It's probably, you would think, a minor injury if they felt like it was touch and go, if they could have it. Obviously, it was enough because you could also have just punted this till tomorrow night if you felt it was that close, unless things were locked in so tight. But they went with the Rey Fenix decision. I mean, unfortunate for Rey, but hopefully it's not anything serious.
I hope I'm not reading too much into it. When we get into the show review, this is more part of that. But I think the result of the match between Fenix and Americano also speaks to this program continuing, which maybe gives them some confidence that Rey will be back to take part in it fairly soon.
We had the extended sit down between Charlotte Flair and Wade Barrett. So they had shown a really brief part about this on SmackDown. I should also add this because Paul Levesque did put out this statement after the AAA announcement. A partnership that will benefit the entire world of sports entertainment, Lucha Libre AAA has been a cultural mainstay in Mexico and the home to many WWE superstars. This partnership will guarantee that AAA remains the premier destination for wrestling in Mexico. A special thank you as well to Patrick Dooley. He is the Senior Vice President of Global Strategy and Creative Operations at WWE, and Kevin Ronke, who is the SVP of Corporate Finance, FP&A, and Corporate Development, which coincidentally enough is also Neil's title here at Post Wrestling. Those two who work for TKO for helping to make this possible. Get ready for these two worlds to collide soon. So even got a Paul Levesque tweet out of this, so it's big business here.
Sure.
Then we had sit down interview with Jey Uso. Like, a lot of this was just, last minute hype for WrestleMania. No matches on the pre-show. But then we did get an angle with Bayley being laid out earlier in the day, screaming for her shoulder. Lyra comes in to check on her, and they're accusing Raquel and Liv. And Pierce tells Lyra, you have 24 hours to find a new partner. So Bayley is out. And I guess based on a lot of reports today and the fact that she popped up at the Hall of Fame, it would seem that Becky Lynch is who I think people are expecting in this role. That would seem like this is more storyline than some kind of injury.
And I think, that's something that we have come to expect from Mania is some sort of return, and this looks like the spot for it. And of course, like a week ago, she was like, "I'm not wrestling anymore." So that was
that should have been the tip off. Tom Rinaldi was on this, and this almost felt like a Super Bowl pregame show where they had like this feature on this fan, Jeffrey Head, who's deaf, and he's a big wrestling fan. So they just kind of profiled him and coming to Mania. Stephanie McMahon was on the desk, and then we end the pre-show with a video, "City of Dreamers," voiced by the one and only Dana White. More to come with Dana White on this show. And it's movie clips from Vegas, Evel Knievel in here. As he calls it, my UFC.
That's right.
I don't know if that's the exact trademark term. And ends it, where else but a place called Paradise? Where else but fucking WrestleMania? It's like, wow. I mean, could we have a better rote script here for Dana White? And then to end things, it's a God Bless America sung by Jelly Roll, who he did the anthem at, I think it was SummerSlam last year in Cleveland. I was there for it. I think this guy's a really good choice to do these anthems. I think this guy's like, I like Jelly Roll, and I think he's a good rendition here of the of God Bless America. And this was also really quick. This had to be 45 seconds.
Yeah. We've had some dreadful live music at WrestleMania. So if they get someone who can hold a note like Jelly Roll can, let's use him.
All for Jelly Roll.
And Living Color, who also seem to have not.
The musical selection's very good in terms of both of those examples. But now it is on to the main show, and we are going to be starting things off with a big video. Well, first we get the arrivals with dude, I don't think anyone sneezed without it being sponsored by something on this show. I am not listing off the sponsorships because they do not have any involvement here with post wrestling. And let me tell you, I know that wrestling fans, for the biggest show of the year, like the last thing you want is like any intrusive advertising that's just coming at you out of nowhere.
Support for this podcast comes from NordVPN. By now, a lot of our listeners already know about the benefits of a VPN for their wrestling consumption, helping them access cheaper prices for pay-per-views or ad-free programming through international versions of popular streaming services. But the most important benefit of a VPN continues to be its ability to help you shield your browsing. Using a trusted VPN like NordVPN adds an extra layer of protection from prying eyes, preventing your sensitive data from being sold or shared with third parties that may put you at risk of unwanted solicitations or even fraud. You know the link by now. NordVPN.com/postwrestling. Sign up for a 2-year plan for just a few dollars per month and get 4 bonus months through our exclusive offer. NordVPN.com/postwrestling. As always, you can try it with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Stay safe and enjoy all the benefits of a secure internet with Nord.
I couldn't say it better.
What a segue.
I try. On to WrestleMania we go, everyone. And we have Heyman entering with CM Punk, and then Charlotte Flair appearing. Very loud boos for Charlotte Flair. Michael Cole stating over 60,000 in attendance. We would get an actual number later from our new attendance revealer. But the opening video is not voiced by Dana White. Instead, Paul Levesque is going to take this one. The stories of heroes and villains. And you know what? He finally showed up. We got Dwayne Johnson. He showed up in this video and told you that expect the unexpected. And he said expect the unexpected. I don't want to toot our own horn, but I think if you listened to our preview last night, I think you and I expected almost everything on this show, almost to a T.
I think so.
Paul Levesque states it's only the beginning if you think you know the whole story. It's the realest it's ever been. And we see shot all these like mainstream athletes doing WWE mannerisms, carrying their replica belts. And then to end things off, Vegas is about to find out how real this shit can get. It's like, who is writing this? Like a 12-year-old? I mean, goddamn, it's like we can swear now. I mean, it sounds so ridiculous in these like produced video pieces that we've got to swear in them. I mean, whatever. I'm sure there's people who are just they love to hear these guys swear.
The fact that they have ingratiated themselves into sports and entertainment, that, you know, real sports, if you like, really love doing their kind of moves and hoisting the belts and stuff like that. That's a great promotional tool.
That stuff should be all over the place. Anytime you get that, you should be playing the hell out of this stuff. Like, absolutely. It's a great endorsement of your characters, of your product. Like, very smart to integrate all of that.
Yeah. But like yourself, the script was like, oh, come on.
Vegas is about to find out. And then we go from Paul Levesque to Paul Levesque in the ring. Just to announce that he alerts the audience, you are being seen by the entire globe. Yes, Netflix has gotten 100% clearance in every country. It's now mandatory with every television set, India included. Yeah, that was it. I mean, God forbid we went an hour on this broadcast without Paul Levesque in some form or fashion. He was just all over this. And maybe part of it, I did get to see the Hall of Fame ceremony, which I will talk about later this week. But it was quite the praise of Paul Levesque. I mean, they made this, like, this was a very big tribute to Paul Levesque for 3 hours.
My time has been somewhat limited this afternoon. I've got Easter visitors and so on, so I haven't seen the Hall of Fame. I was going to watch it, and then I looked at the runtime and I heard how long Paul Levesque's speech was, and thought, well, maybe some other day.
It's why you get 2x the speed. So then WrestleMania kicks off, but not with a match. Instead, we get Salvatore Ganacci, who is a DJ. Apparently, he has very close ties to the Saudi Arabian government, I understand. I've never heard of this guy, so I'm sorry. I could not do my deep research on Salvatore Ganacci. But he comes up, and they're just plastering you with Fatal Fury plugs for this video game. Should also mention, as we brought up the Saudi Arabian government, that Turki Al-Sheikh was there and identified on camera as well. The announcers for the night are Michael Cole, Pat McAfee, and Wade Barrett with the newly designed desk, which would not make it through the end of the night, but it got at least until the main event before they destroyed it. And then kicking things off, it is Jey Uso and Gunther, as had previously been announced. And Jey Uso gets his big entrance where there is a parade of flag bearers on the ramp. This is a super long ramp with Yeet written on all of these flags, and Jey Uso entering through the stadium with the Raiderettes. And they also noted they are filming a documentary on him, and comes out. We go from this DJ and plugging this video game to then we cut to the front row and we got Slim Jim winners. It's like, listen, I'm tolerant of ads, but my God, they're just hitting me quick out of the gate on this show. But yes, this is when Turki Al-Sheikh was showing. Mark Shapiro, Nick Khan also getting prime real estate seats for this show. What do you think about Jey Uso's entrance? Because a lot was made of the production that they would do for Jey Uso's entrance, and just in terms of this lead up to Mania, like the whole Jey Uso experiment, which we'll get into with the match itself. But what did you think about just the entrance itself?
We have seen better, and mostly because in an arena setting, people can yeet in sync. I think probably eat more easily.
It's also bright, so you don't get the phones and stuff.
I may come back to that point about the show in general, like a good 2/3 of it in very bright sunlight. And I think that subtracts some atmosphere. We've seen this before, you know, when they did WrestleMania 31 is a good example of one that was in bright sunlight for an awful lot of the show. And I think that affected it too. The yeeting would have been The crowd yeeting would have been more effective with the the flashlights on the torches and all of that, but that wasn't possible here.
So we start things off, and Jey responds to a chop by nailing Gunther, and Gunther just rolls out like the bully that's been hit. And this suddenly became Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant, where Jey was trying to lift the immovable object Gunther. I was like, maybe like 5 years ago, Gunther, but this was like he got the big scoop slam, and it was like, wow, what a test of strength. Gunther nails him with a power bomb, and Pat McAfee notes that WrestleManias are a must-do for any human being with breath. I was glad he qualified. Jey hits an early Uso splash. Gunther kicks out, and then Gunther grabs the belt, and he's on the floor. Jey sets the referee aside, and as he goes for the dive, Gunther nails him with the belt shot, and with the referee's back turn, misses it, and this leads to a 2 count, and then it's Gunther applying the sleeper hold. He traps the arm, but Jey manages to get out and attacks the knees. They have a lariat battle on their feet with Gunther going down, and after Jey counters, he hits a power bomb, and he just uses Gunther's move on him, follows with super kicks, a spear, and then he goes to one corner for the Uso splash, another corner with another Uso splash, and then a third one onto the back, and then lifts him to apply the sleeper, another one of Gunther's holds, and Gunther just taps out at 16 minutes and 22 seconds, and Jey gets the win. And how did you feel about the opener here and putting the title on Jey Uso?
Well, I had Jey down to win this match. I also, though, expected this to be better. I was a little disappointed by this. I thought the Gunther tap was somewhat unconvincing. What they built up with this guy over a very long time. The dives beforehand notwithstanding. We didn't get any blood. I thought, with the whole Jimmy setup, I thought, we might get something a little more visceral here. Perhaps they didn't want to do it so early in the opener. There wasn't even a hype package for this match. We just went into Jey's entrance, so it wasn't spectacular in ring, and it was an early reminder in this show that WrestleMania is sometimes more about the moments and the grandeur rather than the in ring, particularly. And I hate to say it, so in a WWE review, but particularly in a week when we got that match on Dynamite, it was just a reminder to me, right? Okay, we're not going to see anything like that on this show, and nor should I expect it. But I wanted something more than this as an opener.
It's the biggest show of the year. You can have whatever expectations you want. I would argue. I think it's fine to expect. I mean, not to say you're going to get like a once in a the best match of the entire year out of a WrestleMania, but I think you should have a high standard for this kind of a show. I think I was in a similar boat to you. I was glad that they put the belt on Jey. I thought it was a great idea to have him win the Rumble. He's incredibly over, and I think they should ride this. He's not everyone's cup of tea, but I think this guy is super charismatic, and I think his promos have been really... They've been key in this lead up. And Gunther too. Gunther was a great foil for him for all these weeks. They had too long to build this one up, but they really hit it the last couple of weeks. The weird one in this is just because of the fact that this WrestleMania 9 documentary came out. Do you know that Jey Uso is the exact same age that Hulk Hogan was when he won the title that WrestleMania from Yokozuna?
There's a stat.
Yes.
Interesting.
But different laneways at this juncture of their careers. To me, I would say the most I'm going to do is it was fine, and I expect a whole lot more than fine for your world championship match on a card like this. That it just, to me, it was, you got the big championship title switch, big moment. I don't know if it was really the defining moment, though, by the end of the night, that this kind of felt like it was just something that happened earlier in the show, and it's really about, following up and if this guy can really rise to this position and what kind of run you get with him with this title and the opponents he's positioned with. Jimmy Uso is out. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, John. I was also going to say that this was also a point where I kind of noticing whether it was a miking issue or whether it was just what you hear is what you get. The crowd were not especially amped at this point either, and that would continue for a good portion of the show.
I don't think it was any miking issues, because there were times on this show that you felt this crowd come alive, and I just thought there was a lot more downtime, and I thought it was, we can talk about it now. I thought it was like this consistency throughout the show, in that they would react to like big entrances, big trademark spots. If there was a turn, like a plot point in the midst of a match, like those were the kind of moments that you're talking about that they really got engaged with. But a lot of it was just like your beat to beat wrestling. It was, it certainly did not convey like that added energy. And there's obviously a 4+ hour show. You're going to have lulls. But it was noticeable when you did hear the crowd, of like when it was just going back to like this sort of, it was just a crowd that was not adding a whole lot of energy to this. And you can have your theories on this. This was also the 2 biggest gates that this company is ever doing. And are you getting a more like a different clientele of fans at this point as well, or at least a percentage of them that they are there, and it's not like heavy, hot reacting crowds, or do you look at it for other reasons? It's an interesting discussion to have. Jimmy was out, and they just hugged in the center, and Michael Cole calls this the most coveted prize. Just don't tell John Cena, okay? 'Cause he's about to take the second most coveted prize away. Rick Rubin was showing. No mention of Smoky Mountain Wrestling. Chris Angel and George Kittle. And then I said I'm not going to announce all of these sponsors, but some of them are just too comical not to. Aerial coverage brought to you by Goodyear, as we got an overhead shot of the stadium. The War Raiders against New Day was next for the World Tag Titles, and Wade Barrett notes that New Day's outfits are a tribute to Giant Gonzalez with the airbrushed muscles, and he also pointed out that on the back of their outfits was a 3-headed unicorn, but one of the heads had died to represent Big E. So that was they put a lot of effort into these outfits. The War Raiders then, having to one-up them, come out, and we are told, first of all, these two looked like, even as the War Raiders, these Vikings, I was like, who dressed these guys? And I got my answer. We are informed that they are dressed as Clash of Clans characters. Eric is the Barbarian King, and Ivar is Pekka. And then Pat McAfee explained way too much that he is aware of Clash of Clans. This guy is obviously a very dedicated player. I don't know how this guy manages to have this kind of a hobby, but he really went deep on stuff that was just another language to me.
A huge area of ignorance for me as well. I've seen ads for Clash of Clans, but that's all I know about it. And I did, my younger brother, as I mentioned, is home for Easter, and he was watching some of this with me, and he just said, look at the state of these guys when they came out. And I was like, yeah, I thought the wardrobe budget would have stretched to something a little better. They did look rather cartoonish.
Are you telling me we could have got the double Flanagans on this show?
I could have, yeah. He's asleep.
He's asleep. Yeah, it is. I am mindful of the time here. So Ivar starts off. Did you know that Ivar and Eric had previous neck issues? Because it was only brought up about 14 times during this match. Because that's almost all that they have to cling to, is that they've come back from neck injuries over their careers. Yeah. So Eric slams Ivar off the apron to both on the floor. Wade explains that it's because of their neck injuries in the past that they are so reckless now. It's like, huh?
Yeah.
I don't know. I would think the opposite, but just
sure.
Didn't get any kind of explanation. I guess they figure, you know what? We've got new necks. Let's go wild. So there's a handspring double elbow by Ivar. Again, like the work was fine, but this was one where it was just like this audience was just not into too much here. There's a Trouble in Paradise onto Eric. Ivar lands a spin kick to Kofi, and then he goes for the Doomsday Salt. And it's not until the replay that you see how this guy just barely rotated over. Yeah. And I mean, this could have been brutal, given the neck issue. So the War Machine is stopped, and Ivar, it gets dropped on his neck, but in a safe way. And Woods comes off the top with a very cushioned daylight as Michael Cole warns, don't forget the neck, which is where he is hitting this double stomp. Yes, we have not forgotten about the neck. And then with Kofi holding Ivar's foot from the floor, Woods pins him, and they get the win. regaining the tag titles, their first tag title win in 4 years, and they just sprint to the back with their tag titles after 9 minutes and 13 seconds.
Yeah, again, we're 2 matches deep into the show, and I thought this was middling. There was nothing spectacular here. No, Ivar in particular of the two War Raiders is a very impressive character for the size of that guy, some of the things he can do. But we see that on Raw, and and I don't want to be a grouch the whole way through the show, and I won't be. There's a lot to like as well. But these titles mean very little to people who regularly watch WWE programming. Perhaps those who only watch the pay-per-views and Mania, we'll see, big title change, the heels run off with the belts. It's cool, whatever. But I've long been a proponent that they should have kept the undisputed tag titles just as they have with the women, and I feel like these are worth very little. Yeah,
it's they were in a position here. I like the outcome. I think there is more runway with New Day as tag champions, and maybe at the end we'll just quickly go over the results because of NXT. I thought had a great show today. And with Fraxium losing those tag titles, one would wonder about those two, like what more is left for them to do at NXT, and they would be, I think, a godsend for specifically this Raw tag division that just badly needs some new teams in it, and they'd be a great team to feud with New Day
for sure,
because there's pretty much no one else. More celebrities, Michael Che, Jelly Roll, O'Shea Jackson Jr., and into we go next with Jade Cargill and Naomi with a video package that first we get Naomi and the whole story of these two going back to the attack last year and the reveal of Naomi. But then we cut into a special weather report with Jim Cantori, a meteorologist for the Weather Channel, to give the forecast for Vegas, and this leads to Jade Cargill's entrance. I like this entrance quite a bit with the weather report.
I did too. Although the snow that they were trying to go for with the machine seemed to be a little meager. When Jade came out, I think maybe it's just their bright sunshine. It's kind of hard to create that storm look that they do in arenas. But yeah.
I don't want to say that Jim Cantori is someone that has a ton of time on his hands, don't know the man, but when he was reading this, I'm going to assume he didn't have too many takes in him, because if you watch, as he's reading this, and believe me, it was very clear he was reading like a script, and when he goes to tee up WrestleMania, he leans in as though he's got to read which WrestleMania this is, like WrestleMania 41 he goes in for. This guy was great though. I like this. And then as the match begins, Michael Cole promises us this will not be pretty. And Pat then just created his own angle here, stating that Naomi tried to run Jade Cargill over with a car and tried to kill her. Michael Cole lets it slide for about 5 seconds before he pipes in and says, actually, that's not at all what happened. There was no attempted manslaughter, at least with a moving vehicle. That's what happened with Rikishi. And then we got the actual story conveyed by Michael Cole. So they started this one off, and it's like Jade takes her down, and Naomi is kind of selling for the early couple of minutes before she catches her with a face buster off the apron. A number of fans cheered this as Naomi got on offense. And then we get into a lot of selling by Jade. And this was something that when they would put her out for these lengthier singles matches in AEW, it was the selling that really stood out. And I thought it did here. And this also did not have a crowd that seemed all that into it. However, there was this one spot where Naomi goes for a blockbuster and Jade catches her and then turns it into a jackhammer. This was the best spot of the match. And when there was a big move like this, all of a sudden it was like a button is hit and this crowd would respond. So it's like they were paying attention. It's just, to be fair, like sometimes we just default, it was a bad audience. Sometimes they're not being served with stuff that is engaging them as well.
It's true. And at this exact point that I noted, crowd woke up.
Yes.
After the jackhammer.
So Naomi hooks the rope to prevent Jaded, and Jade then they do another spot like this where she catches a cross body off the top and turns it into a fallaway slam. I'm not kidding. I've never heard a kip up get such a reaction as Jade's did here. Like, they all applauded. It's like, wow, look at this. So they battle on the turnbuckle. Naomi turns it into a bulldog off the top, and then the split-legged moonsault. Jade kicks out, and then Naomi applies a Rings of Saturn. Jade lifts her up, powers her out, and then the finish comes as Naomi is hoisted up onto the shoulders of Jade like she would to set up an electric chair. But instead, she launches her in the air, turns around, does a 180 into a power bomb, and then it was like she was going for the pin, but then remembered to hit Jaded. It was like, this should have just been the finish. You could have just gone with this. This looked incredible. Lifted her up, Jaded, and wins in 9 minutes and 21 seconds. I'm not going to say that this was a great match by any stretch, but I will say people are going to just remember the last 30 seconds here. And this rotating power bomb is probably the most ambitious thing I've seen Jade hit, and she did it in a very big spotlight here. So I did think they hit the finish strong, and they did that jackhammer spot. Those would have been my positives from this match.
Me too, and I don't care how often they had to rehearse it, behind closed doors. It looked absolutely great and was a worthy finisher. But yeah, I suppose got to get Jaded in there to finish it. I also enjoyed Naomi in this match because I just think her facials and her selling and what she did was very good. She's carrying this character so well, and to do it in the ring as well as in the video packages is no small thing. People wondered whether she could carry off this heel character, and she's done it really, really well. I'm glad that she got enough in this match to keep this character going as well. And Jade looked better. There are some selling issues for sure, where she's trying to look, especially when she's on her feet and looking dazed. It just looks not great, but not everything looks smooth. But I mean, Jade has leveled up, I think. And Naomi is tremendous in this role. So,
do you expect? I guess we're saying this before the women's title match on Sunday, but do you expect Naomi, Jade, and by extension Bianca to sort of all be interwoven coming out of Mania? Like, does this cool off this program between these two with like Naomi moving on to Bianca, or like what do you see for Jade coming out of this match getting the clean win?
That's a good question. I'm not sure that there's much steam in this feud between the two of them to continue, but then where's the obvious direction apart from that, other than Bianca? And I think a lot of that will depend on what happens tomorrow. I don't expect Naomi to turn up to interfere in that match. Mm-hmm. She may, because it's a triple threat and therefore anything can happen. But yeah, it's a good question. I just hope they've got something in the books for Naomi, because she's killing this character.
I think she's going to be fine. I think that just going into this, it just felt the way the story was, Jade had to get the win here. But I think Naomi she was the one that shined in the whole lead up to this. And I think this character will give her a lot of opportunities post Mania, because I think there's a lot of interesting stuff that you can do with her, whether it's with Bianca, whether it's reestablishing because Bianca, like they're pretty much pitching that heel direction, at least teasing it. There's a lot you can do, and I thought Naomi was one of the better characters in this build up to Mania this year from either brand. Lily Singh and your man Lil Yachty were showing in the crowd. Man, if I ever, well, I won't. Maybe you will get a stand-up special on Netflix. You're guaranteed to get front row seats at whatever event you need. LA Knight against Jacob Fatu. United States Championship match. Jacob Fatu came out with this cool-looking werewolf mask that will probably retail for an exorbitant fee on WWE Shop. And then to top that, LA Knight was driven up onto the stage with a Maserati. And so the match begins where Fatu is nearly hit with the blunt force trauma very early, but he blocks it, and they just lock eyes. And Knight slides through the ropes with a sliding drop kick, comes off the top and is caught with a slam. And then he goes for the elbow. Knight gets a 2, and Knight stops a moonsault off the top by knocking Jacob off balance. So Knight scales to the top and just launches Jacob, rotating him onto his chest off of the top turnbuckle. Fatu comes back, hitting the super kick and 3 hip attacks, followed with the swanton, and the crowd gets into it as LA Knight kicks out, and we're getting chants back and forth between them. Like they started at we'll see what they're going to show us, and they just kept going and going, and finally they like got the crowd like late in this match. There's a springboard moonsault, and Knight goes for the blunt force trauma in midair. I don't think he quite got this. They never showed a replay of this, but it really didn't matter because this crowd went nuts for this. And they were probably so far away that it looked pretty cool, and they were like fully into this at this point. So they had them, crowd was alive, and Knight ends up draped on the top turnbuckle. Jacob Fatu climbs up the corner and hits a senton in the corner, follows it with a Samoan drop, and then hits 2 top rope moonsaults and wins the match in 10 minutes and 30 seconds. And a pretty big pop here for Jacob Fatu winning that. I think it's going to be very tough to keep this guy as a heel, if they even have designs for that. We should mention Solo Sikoa walked out with Jacob Fatu, brought him out, but then retreated to the back before the match began. No involvement with Solo Sikoa. Otherwise, it was just a really clean win, and I think the direction you wanted to see this go. And like LA Knight is never going to be the most polished guy to watch, but I thought he worked like to his level here, and they ended up like, again, we're talking about like, I would say some like average matches, 4 matches into this show. And this one, I would say it went a hair above average.
I think so too.
Especially for those final minutes where it did feel like they really did win over this crowd.
For sure. A couple of notches above what we'd seen up to now, I would say, in my opinion. And I think some of that was to do with the crowd getting into it. And they were behind Jacob. We got Fatu chants quite early on, then some dueling chants, and they seemed very happy with the result. I think Jacob is really, really good. He's just everything he does, the promos, the facials, the selling, the moves, the moveset. And I agree with you that LA Knight, his bar isn't that high. He's a fairly basic kind of in-ring guy, but you know, for what he does it well. And he hit his bar in this match. So yeah, I thought this was very solid.
So then, by the way, Haku is ringside as Michael Cole mentions the fact that we've got Jacob Fatu and Jey Uso winning titles tonight as well to push the Anawahi extended family. There was an ad for WrestleMania 42 next year in New Orleans, and that takes us to the replacement, Rey Fenix, taking on El Grande Americano. And they went all out for this El Grande Americano video with all of these old lucha stars and then the dubbed over voice, these fake posters and signs held by fans. This looked like it was all AI generated. And I am wondering if this is going to be generating outrage by some. There's been a lot of resistance towards this El Grande Americano character, but I think if you're watching this for kind of the comedy that it's trying to be aimed at, I mean, I looked at it as like, I found it entertaining. I thought it was pretty like, you know, it's like, here's this dick heel who is going to get his comeuppance at some point, and it's just so over the top ridiculous that I don't know. I found this amusing, like with the dubbed over voice and just all the production they put into this video and this entrance to like all the stereo, like it's all built on like the stereotypes down to a mariachi band that they had for him to bring him out here, and back to being billed from the Gulf of America, which Alicia Taylor noted, and Michael Cole did say it has been changed.
Yeah, he did. He said this yesterday, and then he mentioned tonight that Alicia mustn't have got the memo. But I think this was deliberate because it just played into that package, like you said. No, I some people are going to be offended by this, and I'm not Hispanic, and perhaps it's not for me to sort of decide whether it's offensive or not. I'm a bit like you, John. I've just found it too goofy to be offensive. It's just so silly. It's so heelish. It's very Vince-ish, you've got to say as well. And,
it is very Vince-ish, yeah.
But clearly the direction is this guy is going to get his comeuppance. And I think,
and when they unmask him, like as silly as it sounds, like that's probably going to be like this big thing they build up to when he's finally unmasked at the end of all of this. And I mean, it kind of like the ending of this kind of had to go this way for this thing to have any legs to extend beyond of what this leads up to, where he's eventually going to have to put his mask up or something like that. So before the match begins, and maybe this is why we got the Gulf of America labeling, we go to Dana White, who is showing here, and Dana White got quite a number of boos, and then we get just Vikingo showing. I never thought we would get cutaways to Vikingo followed by Dana White at any kind of sports event, but we did here. Also, for the keen eye out there, it did appear that Dana White was seated next to Bella Bajaria, who is the chief content officer at Netflix. And with no exclusive negotiating window to work around anymore. I wonder what came up if they were just sitting. Maybe they were both just bonding over El Grande Americano.
Could be. But your eyes are keener than mine. I didn't spot her, and but I know who she is, so that's interesting. That
they were seated by Bill Simmons. He amazingly landed front row tickets after his interview with Khan this week. Yeah. Gable gets into Vikingo's face, and Vikingo gets physical and just hits him with like a kick over the barricade. And they did a lot more with Vikingo here than I expected them to. I mean, he was showing on the pre-show, he was showing in the crowd, and then they did like a big, like an angle with him. Like we'll get into it with the post-match here, but we start things off. Fenix hits a big high cross to the floor, and then Fenix is suplexed into the corner. Gable then hits a reverse 450, landing on his back on top of Fenix. This looked incredible. And it looked like he landed in like a pretty like safe spot for Fenix to take this. This looked incredible. It looked really, really great. Fenix hits the black fire driver for a 2 count, goes for the goodbye amigo kick, but Gable shakes the ropes. So this distracts the referee who's checking on Fenix, allowing Gable to put the foreign object into the mask. And then as Gable has now put it into his mask, the crowd is booing this, by the way. Now Fenix goes for a goodbye amigo kick, so he kicks him in the face and thus injures his foot, hitting the object, and Gable pounces on him with the ankle lock. Fenix gets out and then caught with a headbutt as he flies at him, and Gable hits the diving headbutt up the top to win in 7 minutes and 55 seconds. So I thought it was good for the time it lasted. It was shorter than I would have liked. And you got El Grande Americano winning. So I thought overall, like, it was a good match, but it was, you tell me Chad Gable and Rey Fenix are going to get a singles match together. I wish it could have got a bit more time to it. And this felt more like this is the placeholder to just keep Rey in the mix and keep this Americano character going till we can pay it off later. And I imagine this would have been the same finish. I think he would have beat Rey in this match to build to a stipulation down the road.
For sure, yeah, the mask versus mask, which hopefully we'll get. I think it's a good sign for Rey's recovery. I mentioned that at the top of the show, because I feel like if Mysterio was clearly going to be out for a long time, they might have just pulled the trigger on Americano getting his comeuppance here and having his mask, yanked off at the end of the match. So that. Perhaps reading too much into it, but hopefully that's a good sign for Rey if this is going to continue, and it clearly is.
Vikingo then enters, and he's checking on Fenix, helps him up to his feet. So I would imagine we're going to be getting Vikingo on television probably ASAP. Like, they are going to make this guy like the main star of this crossover with Triple A, and probably in a big featured match on that Worlds Collide show that I imagine you're going to see a ton of the WWE lucha talent involved with on that show. But it would seem Vikingo's going to be positioned as like the top guy for the Triple A side.
Yeah, even during the announcement section on the pre-show, which they are about to recap on WrestleMania, Vikingo was stood right in the middle and was kind of introduced last, as the star of Triple A, and to get this spot as well, to get on WrestleMania. I think you're absolutely right. He's going to be positioned as the guy here, and he's already got the Paul Levesque point photograph, I think.
Could we get a trios unit, the Vikingo Raiders?
Let's hope so. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's hope not. Shawn Michaels comes out and he's got like Shawn Michaels. First of all, he comes out and they're like, how is this guy still awake? He must be just going on fumes at this point because he had to do the Hall of Fame last night. And then the call time for NXT was something like 5, 6 in the morning. And he's probably just gone straight all day. And he comes out and it's just Shawn Michaels in the Shawn Michaels cadence, drawing things out to announce that all of you 61,467 of you. It's like, if this guy was that exhausted and they made this guy stick around all night, all day, all night long just to come out and announce the attendance. I mean, quite the honor, I guess, that he got. But that was the announced attendance. I don't think we have like the latest number from WrestleTix. The last one I saw earlier in the day was around, it had topped like 55,000 tickets distributed. So, you know, I'm sure this was pretty much in the neighborhood of the tickets that they got out for the show. So yeah, you are looking at, you know, overall, like, let's remember, it was only a few years ago that they ended up for that Money in the Bank that they had booked Allegiant Stadium and had to downscale it to T-Mobile when, you know, at SummerSlam, they weren't going to sell enough tickets to even make it look enough for them to make it worth their while to continue with that. Now, granted, this is a Mania, but it's also the fact you're doing 2 of these and they're going to have pretty much full houses for both nights, not to mention the least of which is record revenue, the number one objective of these shows. Sure. Stephen Amell and Israel Adesanya were showing, and then we get a second showing of Dana White. Yeah. Maybe they thought, oh, maybe it's because we didn't put the graphic identifying his name. Maybe that's why he was booed. So they get Dana White, big block letters, even louder boos this time.
Yes.
I mean, it was right in Vegas too. I mean, it really does tell you just like the difference in, you know, audience bases you have. And this is a traveling audience. It's, you know, it's not just your, you know, it's a cross section of a lot of different fan bases that you would get when you're drawing 60,000 people as well. But it was interesting just to hear.
I thought so. I mean, for sure, it's you know, we know there's a traveling audience there. We know all sorts of things, but this is a WWE crowd booing, you know, the TKO partner who is so tied to Trump that it's like, you know, hardly to be believed, you know. And I think that is notable, you know, that these fan bases are not the same as much as, you know, the companies will try and find synergies and cost efficiencies and run the same cities and get site fees and all of those sorts of things. I don't think there's much crossover in the Venn diagram of the actual fans who attend.
Yeah, it was very interesting because it's not too often you get some like outside people that are just outright booed by all of these crowds. You'll get them sometimes, but and this being one of them. Into the women's championship match, there was a video for Tiffany Stratton to Lady Gaga, and they had this Barbie-themed entrance for Tiffany Stratton where you have the 3 boxes on the stage, and she's the one in the middle with these video screens in the other. And she comes out, and of course, this is courtesy of Mattel, who they have just extended their partnership with. This was quite the elaborate entrance, I would say that they had. It was not what I thought was the best entrance, but I thought they did try to just go all in on this on the whole Barbie concept here.
Fairly elaborate, and a show that was kind of lacking them, you know, for a Mania. There were
cars,
quite a few ordinary
masks. Yeah. They saved everything for the last 2 matches, I guess. And Charlotte drew car. She was driven up on a Rolls Royce. So she gets out and so they're in the ring. It's very clear that number one, the segment in Chicago was the turning point. People were into this because of it. And when this bell rang, like this crowd, they really cared about this. And what I liked is they also worked it like a fight at the beginning. Like they just go right into it. Like this is a brawl. We're not just going to be doing our like, Greco-Roman exchanges here. We're going right into a brawl. Wade Barrett is like yelling, "Throw some potatoes." Like what does that mean in the context of a wrestling match? Throw a potato. Like what does that mean? Don't pull your punches like usual.
I really don't know. Yeah, it's yeah.
So Flair then does Stephanie Becerra's Devil's Kiss, minus Booker T, thankfully, and then applies a Lion Tamer. Stratton powers her way out and manages a rolling senton. Flair gets out of the way from the prettiest moonsault ever, and Flair lands with a big boot and hits a sit-out powerbomb for a 2 count. And then Stratton is sent to the floor. Flair climbs up, but she's shoved down, and Stratton goes after her knee, driving it into the mat on the bad knee that's got the brace on it. Flair then is able to stop her, and now she wraps Stratton's knee around the post and applies the figure 4, which the crowd reacts to. Stratton is attacking the knee to break it, and then hits a chop block to the back of Flair's knee and goes for the PME, lands on the knees, which Flair gets up and thus injures her knee more after blocking the prettiest moonsault ever. And Flair then tries for a natural selection off the top turnbuckle. Completely missed on this.
Yeah.
And they go into slaps to one another. I don't know where it is. And there were probably multiple answers to this because Tiffany Stratton gets busted up throughout this latter part. And the closing shot of her in the post-match looks like she has just been attacked with a shovel. Flair again goes after the knee. And it's like the intensity was there at the beginning. And it was like they had a lot of ambitious things, and it just felt like at a certain point the rhythm was off, and they just stopped like just working this in concert with one another. So she lifts up Charlotte for an Alabama slam, and just it barely goes into the turnbuckle, and goes for the rolling fireman's carry. And then just hits the prettiest moonsault ever, and she pins her. This finish came out of nowhere for me. 19 minutes and 10 seconds, and you just have this shot of Tiffany, who looks like she may have chipped a tooth, had a busted up, swollen lip with blood, and her forehead looks swollen as well. It was like, what the hell happened in this? I've seen a lot of criticism of this match, but how did you feel it? Because I felt that there were moments in this that this was working, and the crowd did seem to respond to it, but it just felt like it got lost in this whole thing, and the ending just did not feel like the climactic point of the match to end this.
For sure, I agree with you that it got off to a good start. They were slugging at each other. There was no collar tie up to start this. It was let's feed off this feud, this blood feud that they've got. But maybe the final third, or maybe half even of this match, was fairly botch laden, and I think Tiffany will probably come away from this with feeling that these are badges of honor. But you really ought not to come out of a wrestling match with broken teeth, a welt on your head, and all the rest of it. That can happen when things are snug, but it seemed to fall apart a little bit. And as you mentioned, it's also something in my notes. I just thought that the finish seemed to come from nowhere. It really wasn't built up to very well. One has to assume that the match was carefully laid out, but particularly the end, I thought was pretty poor.
This is going to be a weird program to go back and look at, because I would have to say that I thought that overall, like, this program was just not clicking after the Rumble week after week. They do the promo in Chicago, and it seems like a mess, but they latched onto something. Like, that was something real that people got into, and I thought that, okay, they're now in a position, they go out and kill it in this match. This is going to be a really, overall, like, a positive that they will come out of. I don't feel that way at the end of this whole thing. I think they had the chance to, but I was overall disappointed with the match. And more importantly, I'm not that interested in seeing any follow-up to this.
No.
I'm really scratching my head of what you do specific with Charlotte after this. Because I thought there was a good chance she at least wins this, and you at least have her with the title. I don't think this calls for a rematch, and I'm kind of racking my brain of like where Charlotte goes next. Like, certainly you can pair her with whoever, but given like the return and where things were, it just feels like she is just kind of stalled at this point. And it's just one that I think that this return has not gone well.
I agree. And, I assume that in 3 weeks' time at Backlash, we're back to, a 5-match card. I don't, and traditionally there's been some rematches from Mania on Backlash. I don't see this being one of them. I hope not, because it's this program they stumbled into something, like you said, but they didn't really capitalize it.
And they left no opening for a rematch. Like there was no kind of funny business about the finish, or she just squeaked by. I mean, she won with her finisher. It was clean, and I don't know if there's a whole clamoring for anything more out of this.
But one of my favorite parts of the match was when they were brawling on the outside, and Tiffany almost got dumped right into Mark Shapiro's lap.
And he does the big, yeah, I caught that too. Yes, he was getting very concerned there. At the end of this match, how would you have assessed this WrestleMania show as we are preparing for the main event?
Mid. Thumbs firmly in the middle, maybe even slightly.
I was pretty disappointed.
I was disappointed.
Like I went into this and I was looking on paper. I was like, at the end of the day, I think a lot of this stuff is going to deliver, and I think you'll get a pretty quality main event. But I would say pre-main event for your biggest show of the year, and for all of the build up, and for this is the top company in the world. I think your expectations should be very high for this show. I thought this was a pretty disappointing show of where this was. Like I couldn't say like any of the matches on the undercard are these like recommended matches that you really have to go out of your way to see. Like at best, I can say like there was some good stuff. I can glean some positives from these 3 hours, but nothing to me that was truly like memorable in terms of a match. It's like, to me, it was just a lot of not meeting the expectation level that you would have had.
There's no big sleeper match that you would want to recommend to your friends to check out, who are perhaps casuals. Like you, John, I looked at how they divided up the matches for Saturday and Sunday and thought, this is a good split. There isn't one night that's like head and shoulders above the other. And I just, disappointment is the word I would use at this point in the show to describe my feelings. And I always try to be authentic to my own opinions and stick to those on these review shows. But I did check in with one or two friends who I knew were watching to say, is it me or is this not really delivering? And I feel like that's what I got also from, for example, Jesse from the Six, who was up at Gabby's watching this with our mutual friends. And,
did you get a live report from Gabby's?
Yeah, a brief one.
Well, I'm sure they were.
Fun was being had, unsurprisingly.
The Hall of Fame inductees were brought out, minus Lex Luger, who was not there, but everyone else was. Austin, Brett, Michelle McCool, Fred Ottman, John Tenta's family, and then Paul Levesque coming out one more time. That was our final Paul Levesque appearance for at least tonight. I'm sure we will get more of him tomorrow.
Did you catch the moment, milliseconds after Paul Levesque shook Bret Hart's hand?
I saw so much discussion about this handshake and people like reading into it. I saw it and I feel that's just Bret. I didn't read anything more to that, but it
is absolutely Bret being Bret. But I completely love it, and I'm looking for the gifs of this. That little eye roll.
I will never not see those two together in the same shot together and not think about Bret Hart's famous assessment of Paul Levesque. It was, I think the assessment was a 3 out of 10. That was his assessment of Paul Levesque.
Brilliant.
So this match ended, and I'm looking at the clock. It was maybe like 9:55, something like that. I'm like, oh man, we're going to be done this show in no time. Well, from the time that match ended until this match began, I mean, we must have had 30 minutes plus here, because we had the Hall of Fame, we had all of these entrances. And granted, listen, it's WrestleMania. You do want to have the big production entrances for your main event. So I was not complaining about that. And each of the three got a relatively big entrance, starting with Seth Rollins, who comes out all in black and has a flamethrower. The lights go out, and he goes from all black to all white on Easter, no less. So, yes.
He is risen.
Yes, CrossFit Jesus resurrected on Easter weekend. How beautiful. And so he is out, followed by Roman Reigns, who is walking out all by himself for the first time in years, with the Ulafala around his neck, and Wade Barrett reflecting with his signature celestial style.
Plotting.
And what was cool was with the graphics they have over above, they had all the different various members of the Anawahi family. That was a cool touch for.
I really like that visual. I really like that visual, and I thought maybe perhaps not enough was made of these entranceway screens, because that what they used them for here with the Anawahi sort of dynasty.
Roman was the only one that stood out to me that they did anything unique with of the ones, because they do use these like with frequency on the show. But then the big entrance was CM Punk, because we go back and what they do is they are juxtaposing. Pretty much he is reciting a promo word for word that he did 20 years ago, and they're cutting back from 20 years ago Punk to present day with his old Kill Switch Engage theme. Underneath, we're getting shots of OVW, ECW. It's basically the story of CM Punk minus 2 years elsewhere.
Sure.
And says, tonight is my night. Tonight is my main event. Maybe him and he was comparing notes with Dana White and my UFC. This is my main event. And we cut to a live performance by Living Color, who were awesome on this show.
Tremendous, yes.
Man.
I mean, I see Living Color. They were on one of the American talk shows very recently, just a few weeks ago. Corey Glover, the singer, has absolutely still got it. At 60 years old, he
hit the notes. Like this was a really good performance. I've been at some of these live performances at Manias, and they're nothing to write home about. But this was really good. And Punk came out, and man, when I saw Heyman just rocking out, I'm like, oh man, we're getting. I mean, this is just setting the table here. And it's hoodie CM Punk. We're going back to like 2012 CM Punk with the hoodie with Heyman at his side. And it's not till 10:25 that the bell rings Eastern time. And the crowd, they just go wild. Like, it's three superstars and big entrances, all the pomp and circumstance of Mania. And, you know, I honestly believe now that we are here at this weekend, I do feel this was the best built of your two main events for either night, and by extension of really any of the matches. Like to a lesser extent, like I did like overall the Naomi stuff, and that had a long-term story. But in terms of what was the best built story, I think the audience was most invested in this match because of the different outcomes it could have. And it was very clear, like this was by leaps and bounds the match the audience was most responsive to. And a lot of it was around it was almost like the winner was secondary to who is Paul Heyman going to align with. That was the drama of the match. Whether you like that or not, that worked for this audience, and I'm sure it was for a lot of people that were watching. So Reigns is very frustrated with Paul Heyman as he's yelling at Heyman as he's working over Punk. And Punk and Rollins would take the crowd, and Rollins nails him in the knee with this trash can, and they make their way eventually ringside, where Reigns leaps over the barricade onto both men, and Punk gets Reigns into the ring, does his roar as he tries to spear Roman, and Roman catches him with a Samoan drop. And we're just getting all like interspersed moves between the three that are getting involved. We get a brief team up spot for Roman and Punk as Roman has Rollins hoisted on the shoulders and did not flip him over into a Jade Cargill powerbomb, but instead held him for a doomsday device by CM Punk. So then we get the first big near fall when Roman hits Punk with the Superman punch just to make him clear that the doomsday device was not some peace offering. Punk then blocks a spear with a kick and lifts him up for the GTS, but Reigns elbows his way out. Punk hits a Uranagi and applies the Anaconda Vice, which gets broken up by Seth Rollins with a frog splash. And we see buckle bombs delivered to Punk and to Reigns. And then it was starting to just get into the heavy artillery. Reigns goes for a spear and is caught in a pedigree by Seth Rollins, who gets him down, hits the stomp, and Reigns manages to kick out. So then he goes, misses a Fenix splash to Roman. Punk then gets out of the way. He spears Rollins. And then there's a GTS to Reigns. Reigns kicks out. So we're just we're nailing all the finishers. People are kicking out, and the crowd's kind of going nuts for pretty much all of these near falls. And then it's time for the acting portion. Neil, we got
Masterpiece Theater.
Yes,
begins.
we needed some mics here as Rollins is explaining to Roman, he doesn't belong here. It should be us. He's the outsider. And he goes, he clears.
You feel me? You
feel me? Yeah, we even got a Mox reference here by Rollins. Yeah. He clears the newly designed desk, and Rollins is trying to get Reigns to join him in powerbombing another man through a desk. And Reigns is all torn. How did I know he was torn? Because he's got his head down and he's pulling his hair. What should I do? What should I do? I was like, oh my God. Like, I really enjoyed this match, but for people that like just totally dump on this acting stuff, boy, do they give you ammunition for it.
Sure.
It's like, man, this part was like the goofiest part of the match. But Roman, he decides at the end it's not going to be a Shield powerbomb. Instead, he decks Rollins. He powerbombs CM Punk by himself through the desk. And
damn it.
My God, these desks, they sound like no fun to go through. There's like this cracking sound to them. There's also like these LED screens that are like propping them up that I'm hoping they're moving at some point before a guy goes through these. And then Rollins is getting put through the Spanish desk. So he breaks both of these desks with both of them, brings Rollins into the ring and spears him. Awesome near fall here. I think this audience totally bit on this. So then Punk is in and he gets caught in the guillotine. So he's fighting this. He flips over, gets to the Anaconda Vice, and then it's Rollins who takes CM Punk and applies the sharpshooter. Meanwhile, Reigns then applies the guillotine to Rollins, and it's countered with a Northern Lights. Reigns holds on to the choke when Punk stomps Reigns, and then a GTS is hit to Seth Rollins. Now Seth kicks out of the GTS. Then we have a procession of a GTS spear stomp, resulting in all three being down, and this is the culmination of the match, with all three laid out, forming a triangle in the ring. There is Paul Heyman getting a chair. And this crowd, there's this big ooh as they see him with the chair. And he looks at Reigns and he looks at Punk and he's torn. Both men want the chair, and this is going to prove who is he loyal to. So he slides it to Punk, and this crowd reacts. They're like, oh my God. And Punk takes the chair as Heyman is in the ring, and as he stands behind Punk, gets down on a knee and nails CM Punk right in the balls. And Heyman is in tears, and he's yelling, you made me do this. You made me do this. Meanwhile, Reigns is laughing. He's got the wise man back in his back pocket. So Heyman gets down on one knee and presents the chair to Reigns. Meanwhile, Seth is staggering to his feet, and he's leaning against the far rope with his back towards Heyman and Reigns. So Heyman points out, this is now the shoe on the other foot. You can hit him in the back with the chair. So as Reigns winds up with the chair, it's Heyman that low blows Roman, and everyone loses their mind as Heyman hands the chair to Seth Rollins. And it's Seth with one chair shot to the back and a stomp, pinning Roman Reigns at 32 minutes and 40 seconds. Heyman and Rollins leave WrestleMania together, and Seth is your winner.
Yeah. This saved the show for me. Some might say overbooked or whatever, but this was a WrestleMania main event with all the bells and whistles.
This is the match of the year you throw everything at towards. And 100%. My God, this show desperately needed this at the end of it. Yeah. I don't think this was enough to save the show as a whole, but I don't think you can make any argument other than this being like the strongest match that was presented on Saturday night. And listen, this audience, I think as much as they wanted, I think honestly, they wanted a turn more than they wanted like a quality 30-minute match. Like they wanted a big evolution in a story. And that's what they got at the end of this. They tried to tie in all of this different history. Listen, I thought this was well put together. It was very like your WWE style of main event where we are going to exaggerate and amplify everything for maximum dramatic impact, and that can be tiresome for some. But I thought overall you can only gauge it by the reception it got, and I thought this worked well. And even clocking in at 32 minutes, I didn't feel it overstayed its welcome either. Like if you had pushed this, like we were talking, like if this goes 40, 45, you might have risked that. But I thought at 32, it was the right length, and the show clocks in at just under 4 hours. They wrapped up the main show.
And WWE are very fond of telling you that it's the crowd that they listen to. They're the ones who tell us, and in this spot, I guess it's correct, I mean, and it was really well laid out. They were into everything, and I think it didn't outstay its welcome. The sequences at the end were very, very good, and we get Michael Cole absolutely losing his mind at what a money-sucking Benedict Heyman leech that Heyman is, which was good fun as well.
What do you think this sets up Seth for? Like, do you see him immediately like getting into it like a title mix with Jey Uso? Do you see just more of this? Because there's ample story coming out of this match that you can still, there's a big match to be had with Roman. There is, I was somewhat surprised. I thought the only difference I saw in this was him pinning CM Punk, just because that was like this big loss that he has, but you still have that in, and it's more important now that you've got Heyman now backing Seth Rollins, so it does refresh Rollins and Punk to run that one back at a future show as well.
For sure, yeah, I think there's a number of directions you could go in, and having Heyman aligned as a heel with Rollins now, Heyman, can pull levers and get things, get title matches and main events for him and all of that kind of thing. I do feel Seth and Roman seems to be a likely direction, but that will all depend on what Roman wants to do with his Mr. Limited, as Seth called him last night. I think Mr. Limited appearances, whether or not he'll want to go into a program at this point or disappear for a little while. But yes, there's any number of ways you could go with this, and they're all pretty good.
So night one of WrestleMania, typically I have found that the first night of Mania has usually been like a very strong start to the first of two nights. I'm definitely not going thumbs up on this show. I'm struggling to even say thumbs in the middle, to be quite honest. Like, really, my only argument to get to that level is talking about like the last 45 minutes of the show, which to me was of like that quality. But for a show like this, like I'm not saying everything is going to be this classic, but I was very underwhelmed by the undercard of this show. So I mean, I cannot say that this was a great show overall. I thought it was a great main event. Agreed.
Beyond some isolated spots, for instance, the Jade finish, Jade Naomi finish. The undercard was objective. Well, and objectively is not the right word to use, because all of these opinions are subjective, but was poor in my opinion, and disappointing as is the word I'm going to resurrect from earlier on. The main event, saved it for me and clearly saved it for this crowd. But yes, let's hope for a lot better on Sunday, and Way hopefully will, coming out of his cocoon with the newborn will be treated to something.
Well, I have I'm curious to see what they follow up with on Sunday night. We've got a bunch of feedback to get into. Do you want to pull up the forum thread as well, Neil, and we can go back and forth on this. Before we go to the forum, we will take one super chat here. Do want to alert everybody as well, though. If you're enjoying the show, we will be back Sunday night, again, same time, immediately after WrestleMania. We've also been doing WrestleMania coverage all week long at postwrestlingcafe.com. It's $6 to get you 30 days of access, and you can check out all of the additional shows we do on a weekly basis. And this past week, we did shows Thursday, Friday, and today with reviews of Bloodsport, of Collision, of the Mark Hitchcock Memorial Show featuring a legendary match between Butterbean and Minoru Suzuki. Today, Kate from Montreal and John Cena were up. chatting all about Spring Break 9, which I did get to see the Joey Janela Sabu match today as well, which was quite something as well. But yes, all of that can be found postwrestlingcafe.com. And Neil and I will be back later this week for our Double and Espresso members for the 3rd installment of Book Club. And what are we reviewing this week, Neil?
Hell in Boots, which is the recently released autobiography by Saraya, otherwise known as Paige, during her WWE run, who is recently retired from wrestling, it seems, from interviews she's been doing promoting the book. We'll save our thoughts for the show, John, but I have some. I will say that she apparently this was a long-term project that was written with the help of a ghostwriter, and then she went back, didn't feel that it was in her authentic voice, and wanted to try and rewrite it herself. I think in some places that shows, but we'll get to it.
All right. Well, that is all can be found postwrestlingcafe.com. Let's get into your feedback. We're going to start off with a super chat from Jake from the Windy City. Enjoyed the show. With this ending, do you think that the Bloodline have officially gone separate ways? Also, Hall of Fame was way too long. Move it to Thursday. It's an interesting question. The Hall of Fame always seems to be this sort of where you fit this into the weekend with more and more hours of television you're producing. And it really created that added complication when you have a 3-hour SmackDown preceding it. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot for the fan base, and it's a lot for the people that are directly involved as well. You could, if you are partnering with some of these hotels, which I imagine they are going to continue these kind of non-wrestling events throughout the week and weekend, moving it to another night is certainly possible. I will say I greatly prefer the kind of smaller, intimate setting than when they were doing it just after SmackDown in the arena. It's just got a way better vibe. I think the Hall of Fame, it works a lot better for 3,000 people than it does for a big arena. And I think there was a time that you could fill an arena for the Hall of Fame, but where people are now, and that the fact is you stream this event, I think like it cannot be a stand on its own in an arena, and I don't think you want it piggybacking off of SmackDown every year. It just seems to be a lot, but
I feel too a lot of it will depend on, if this weekend is for you the WWE fan who's into all of the shoulder programming that they do, or for you the wrestling fan who's more interested in perhaps what you can find on Triller Plus and so on. And that's me, because not to tell my life story, but like on Black Friday last year, Triller Plus was available at half price for the yearly thing. So it was $30-something to get, basically all of DCW. My priority this weekend has been to try and catch up with Bloodsport and the Tokyo Joshi Pro show that was on Triller Plus as well. Those sorts of things, rather than spend however many hours the Hall of Fame was.
Yeah, like 3 hours.
It's too long.
The Bloodline splitting up after this. I don't think so. I think there's going to be like continued with like Solo Sikoa and with Jacob Fatu, and you still have like Hikuleo has been signed like forever as well. Like he's a question mark, and
they don't bench people though, John.
Yeah, they don't bench people. You know what the funniest part is that quote went everywhere, and the next day, like the Street Profits were interviewed about not being on Mania, and Ford's exact quote was, "Sometimes you got to ride the bench."
That's right.
It's like, and they're not technically benched, but it was just a funny choice of words given the subject matter. All right, let's get in. We got a bunch of them here. I don't know if we'll get to everyone. We might have to make some of these concise, but let's get into forum.postwrestling.com. Jamie from the UK. Decent show, but if there's one thing that needs to come out of tonight's show, it's Tiffy dropping the Tiffy time and running with this badass look she had at the end of the match. I don't think this was planned. I don't think this was her plan. She looked awesome with half her teeth knocked out. I'm not advocating for her to not get her teeth fixed, which she should, but after, put a gum shield in and run with it. Okay, well, maybe this will create some edge for Tiffany Stratton. I don't think that was the plan going in, but yeah,
I think they'll stick to the more sort of.
She may have a hell of an
party.
Instagram post tomorrow with what the after.
Oh, I'm sure.
With the day after and what her face looks like tomorrow.
Agreed. They do like to sport their badges of honor. Big Willie Styles is next. As I sit here watching the main event, I'm bored out of my mind. I wasn't thrilled going in, and I'm less than thrilled going out. Won't be difficult for night 2 to beat this. So a negative reaction.
Let's go to Stroll from Boston. It says, Gunther and Jey, a great match until the week ending. I know the story was about Jey stepping up to Gunther's level, but the tap-out ending leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Everything else feels like what I think a match on Raw should be. Very meh. Mid, as the kids would say. Special mention to Gable and Fenix for putting on a decent match. Tiffany and Charlotte was great. Period. Fantastic match. I love Charlotte stealing Vakur's Devil's Kiss. It really fed into the story of Charlotte being afraid of losing her spot to a younger wrestler. Tiffany was excellent in this match. I was surprised yet very happy with her retaining the title. So there's a different point of view on the women's title match. Main event also ruled. Sometimes the WWE spells out what's going to happen, makes you think it won't happen, and then hands it to you on a silver platter, and it's fantastic. Seth winning was great. Both Punk and Roman put Paul in a bad position, so I don't blame him one bit. Story-wide, it was great. Match-wise, it was great. So there you go. Satisfied customer with the last 2 matches.
Yeah. Brian in New Jersey writes, I thought this was a solid first night. The main event was my match of the night. I think we're all agreed on that. Worlds better than the night 1 main event last year, which was, that sort of almost play-in sort of round for night 2's main event. I saw the turns from Heyman coming. But I thought they were well executed. I also thought LA Knight and Jacob Fatu was a lot of fun, and I can't dismiss a Haku cameo. Also, I know it's just a Hall of Fame segment, but it was really weird to me seeing Brett and Austin just standing off to the side like that. There was a moment, though, Brian, I don't know if you caught it, where they were chatting to it. Brett and Austin were having a good little few seconds, at least, with each other, I think, having a little chat off to the side.
Yeah, there was a bit of that they had on.
Those two
on
do seem
together.
to get along pretty well. I remember an episode of when Edge and Christian had their podcast. They did a sort of recurring segment called Anatomy of a Match, where they brought both on to talk through it and talk about the blading and all of that. It's well worth a listen, and you can only find it these days on Spotify. The E&C Pod of Awesomeness or whatever it was called.
Let's go to super chat here from Jason Hagholm. Hey guys, I, like most, thought night 1 was pretty disappointing. With this being the latest Mania in history, I think WWE missed the mark as too much competition between NBA and NHL playoffs and Easter. Move it a week earlier. Well, next year it will not conflict with Easter. I think more so, I think it was two-pronged. I think number one is the fact that Vegas wanted them this weekend because of that reason. Like, Easter is apparently just not a big tourism weekend in Vegas. Like, people do not travel during Easter, at least not in high volume. And their hope was, here's a low weekend for us, and WWE can make it a big weekend for us in Vegas. So that gave WWE, fuel to, get paid for, their site fee for coming to Vegas for that. Number two is that many years it falls on the same weekend when you've got the Final Four for the NCAA tournament, and they would be going against that on the weekend, and then the Raw after Mania would usually go against the final game. So they did avoid that this year. It's very difficult. Like, there's very few weekends that you're going to be completely competition free, but that's totally the way that Nick Khan thinks when booking all of this stuff. Of like, that is sort of his thought process. But yeah, I didn't know like if Easter would be a big deal for some, but just like among people I have heard from, like it was like a factor for a lot of people who are just they're getting together with family, and it's like, this is a 2-night thing if you want to follow it all, and it is difficult for some when you've got like a holiday weekend that you're navigating around. But that said, I mean, we won't probably know what the success was of this on Peacock, but we definitely will see internationally how this did on Netflix. And like, from a live gate perspective and attendance, I mean, you can't really complain about, or if you're TKO, like this was the two most successful shows the company has ever promoted. So in that sense, like, we're talking, I think, in relative fashion here about what what more you could have attracted from people. But
Yeah,
it will be interesting to look at those Netflix stats when they come out later this week.
Yeah, very interesting, I think. And we know, particularly this being a holiday weekend in a lot of Europe, where people can afford to stay up late and, 2 nights in a row and perhaps be off on Easter Monday. But I agree with Jason that, it was a very long run up to this late Mania, and now we've got only 3 weeks until the next PLE, and that does feel a little kind of creatively a problem.
Yeah, you're almost going to have your big matches announced by the end of the TVs this week. Like that's a very quick turnaround.
Yeah.
Do you want to go next?
Back to the forum. Jermaine from Chicago. Thanks for all the hard work this week. Mania was okay. I think I like Dynamite more this week. I don't know if the level of storytelling was good this year. I don't think it was one great in-ring match on the whole card. I've maintained that the level of wrestling as a whole in WWE has dropped, and this Mania proved it to me. Hopefully my guy Rusev answers Randy Orton's challenge tomorrow. He should be in the world title mix versus Jey day one. Have a great day two. He'll be back. We'll see who answers the call. I think Rusev is a good shout though.
Yeah. We failed to mention it during the SmackDown review, but they did make the date very clear for the vignettes that they've been running for April 25th, which is this Friday. So, yes. I mean, if you're attaching Aleister Black to that, which I think is what everyone assumes, like it looks as, I think Aleister Black would have been like a tough fit for that role on a last minute notice for that. Rusev, I think, is probably the safest to get like your best reaction and someone that, I mean, you could be ballsy and just have Rusev win, or I don't think he loses a whole ton in Orton winning this. I think Orton almost has to win this match
I think so.
to set something up for him for Backlash probably. So we will see what happens on that front. Okay, a few more here. Alex Francois, a 2.5-hour show lasting 4 hours due to celebrities and commercial tie-ins. I'm sure this will have been discussed, but the amount of advertising was off-putting throughout. But I understand WWE is a business, and it's going to happen if fans like it or not. Main event was great, even if I didn't find myself as emotionally invested like last year's Mania and Cody's story. It wasn't a waste of a Saturday night, but to use the John Pollock WrestleMania scale, it was the definition of a mid-tier Mania. How do you find the advertising? Is it still jarring, given that this is a relatively new phenomenon for WWE viewers?
No, it's not jarring to me at this point because as a weekly television viewer of the television product that they produce, I'm very used to it at this point. Yeah, and as you predicted, John, the things like the mat sponsorships, I barely notice them these days.
Yeah, they had a bunch of different ones on too. I didn't even make note of all of them, but that one, whatever it was, the video game seemed very prominently positioned throughout the night.
Yeah. Who's up next? Alex Francois. A 2.5-hour show. Oh no, that's what you. That's
the next one.
The next one.
Bagel Boy.
Brendan is his real name. Outside of the awesome main event, this was a pretty weak card overall. Less than 2 hours of in-ring time on a 4-hour card. What a slog. Gunther tapping out so quickly from a weak choke was not great. Jade and Naomi was awkward, with Jade looking lost on more than one occasion. Yeah, I kind of agree with that. Things picked up with Fatu winning. Fenix and Americano was entertaining. Stratton Flair was good, albeit with a few awkward moments as well. But still felt like a Monday Night Raw until the main event. Crowd finally showed up, and so did the performers. Statement and a question, with Vince's name coming up several times this week and the current administration doing whatever they want, I can see Vince escaping any sort of repercussions for the horrible things he's done. All I'd say about that is this: I don't believe the administration can interfere in a civil case. I'm no expert, but
yeah, it's a civil case. The administration cannot like if there had been federal charges, that would have been a different subject, but not in a civil case. We didn't have time to talk about it, but I mean, that was something very noteworthy that Paul Levesque in his hour-long speech did dedicate a portion to talking about Vince McMahon. And it felt obviously that he felt the need that it would almost become a focus if he does a whole thing and doesn't bring up Vince. he didn't talk long about him, and his message was basically it's an extremely complicated relationship because he was not just my mentor and my boss, but he's also my father-in-law, the grandfather to my children, and Stephanie's father. And I love him, was pretty much like his sentiment. Like it was interesting just to see the fact, and Vince's name was brought up several times by others on the show, but most focused upon from Paul Levesque, that noted it. And I mean, for all you want to say about like how Vince would be received, like the way this speech was structured, it was like you introduce the topic and then there's a reaction, and Hunter like tees it up. He's like I'm paraphrasing, but this mentor that meant a lot to me, Vince McMahon. And there's a pause, and it's like pretty positive. Like the crowd is cheering, like not overtly like cheering and stuff, but it's like no boos. It's all like applause and cheers at the name Vince McMahon. And whatever you want to read from that is like how that audience responded. It was, just to put it bluntly, there was not a negative response when the name Vince McMahon was brought up.
Yeah, which is interesting given that he's been basically airbrushed from the company over the past, since January of last year.
Yeah, almost completely. Like outside of like if Paul has been asked about him in interviews outside, like he's to my knowledge like never been asked about like the lawsuit or anything other than at the press conference. But in terms of interviews, like he's spoken about him as a mentor, but like within like WWE, yeah, like it's like that is just the name that is not referred to unless we're subtly going to refer to someone in a promo like Cody did.
Yeah.
All right, let's do, I'm just going to skim through. We'll do two more here. Jeremy, who is just leaving the show in Vegas, said the main event was great. Crowd stood the entire time. Maybe a title would have helped, but we got the big angle with Rollins and Heyman. Tiffany and Charlotte was the second best women's match of the night. Seemed clunky, and maybe they had difficulty working with one another. So wait a minute. Charlotte and Tiffany was the second best women's match of the night. Does that, like there were only two women's matches on the show, so I don't know if that's praise or a negative. It would sound like the latter. But he says he is looking forward to night number 2. Do you want to pick one more, Neil, and then we'll take this one?
This is completely at random. I'm going to Magan. Main event, as expected, was the match of the night. The Paul Heyman drama elevated the in-ring, and Roman ending up on the island of isolation is what his character needs now that he's been forsaken by the now former wise man, and Rollins got one over on him again. I can't lie, I got chills before the match started when this Fire Burn started playing. It got me in the feels. I'm very happy for Punk. The New Day War Raiders felt like a TV match, agreed. Instead of a WrestleMania match, the TLC match scheduled for next Friday would have been a better choice, also agreed. Tiffany Stratton got put through the ringer to get a signature victory when it looked like a foregone conclusion that Charlotte would get another title run. Remains to be seen if this will continue beyond tonight. On this night, 2 blows this out of the water. Stand and Deliver could potentially steal the weekend.
Yeah, like just on that note quickly, we're not going to do a whole thing because Sunday at noon, right here on the channel, free and live, Braden Harrington and Davey Portman will review Stand and Deliver. I thought they had a great show. The main event, I mean, this was hands down a better show than night 1 of WrestleMania. But the main event, Obafemi, Trick Williams, and Javon Evans, I thought it was a terrific 17-minute match. I mean, these are all 3 guys that could be enormous stars on the main roster. Obafemi he feels ready now, and Javon Evans, I would love to watch this guy just get another year in NXT because he is something special. Like he to me has like that same level of charisma that a Jeff Hardy had. It's just an intangible that he's so likable. He's got such a crowd pleasing style. He has. There's so much going for him. And Trick Williams is like, he looked very good in this match. Like he is someone that it's sort of like, is he going to be able to connect on all levels when it comes to like the work portion? And I thought he looked like really great with these two in the match. The women's 4-way was a very good match as well with Vicaire, Jordan Grace, Jada Parker, and Julia. And easily the best match of Hank and Tank's career, and no surprise, it was with Fraxium, and they put the tag titles on Hank and Tank. But even Ricky Saints and Ethan Page, like not the match of the show, but just a solid, good opener that they had. That like 2 solid pros, and they had like just a really nice wrestling match as well. I have to say, I really enjoyed that show. I didn't think that WrestleMania even came close to Stand and Deliver today in terms of the best WWE show.
Yeah, it feels a wee bit like a throwback to the mid 2010s when you know, the NXT takeovers would steal the weekend from WrestleMania. We'll see what tomorrow brings.
Yeah, and night 2, this is our card for tomorrow night. In the main event, it is Cody Rhodes and John Cena, Randy Orton in the Open Challenge, Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez against Lyra Valkyria and her partner. So we have 2 surprises on the show. Damian Priest against Drew McIntyre, AJ Styles against Logan Paul, and the 4-way with Braun Breaker and his 129.4% chance against Penta, Finn Balor, and Dominic Mysterio. And opening up the show will be Io Sky, Bianca Belair, and Rhea Ripley. Contrary to popular belief, I am an optimist, and I think this card will be much better than night 1.
I do. As you run down those matches, I think, yes, this has the potential to blow tonight's efforts out of the water, and I hope it does, for your sake and for Way's as well, coming out of paternity leave for one night only. I hope they put on a show for him.
Rather than go through the whole card, what do you see as the outcome for Rhodes and Cena? And also, like, it's John Cena that has, you know, he's got to do like a big main event singles match that he has not been put in a position that he's had to do in quite some time. And I mean, I am sure they're going to have a really well put together, laid out match, but it is a lot. Like, we have seen John Cena, and it's like he has, you know, struggled in some respects, but you have got the story, you have got the new character, the question about, you know, who shows up in this, and I think they will do more than fine, and they could have something very special on Sunday. But what do you see as the outcome in this one, and your interest 24 hours out?
I think Cena wins, and I think that's a more interesting story to tell going forward, because people won't know exactly what's going to happen with the title and so on. But I agree with you, John. We haven't seen Cena being really solid in ring for a long time, really, since the era of the US Open Challenge, when he sort of elevated the United States title for a while, and his part-time runs have not been wonderful. So I expect that main event to have, again, a bit like tonight, a lot thrown at it. I at this point think we need Dwayne Johnson to be in there, or something of that level, because if it's a straight up wrestling match between these two, it's not going to be that good.
Well, that is Sunday night. I want to thank everyone for checking us out tonight. If you can be so kind, just hit the subscribe button on the YouTube channel. We are here on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday nights at postwrestlingcafe.com, and then the review portion gets added here on YouTube, free for everybody out there. So Waiting is here on Sunday night. It will be Waiting headlining night 2. But you know what, Neil, you shined in your night 1 main event duties. We thank you so much for doing this back-to-back nights in your time zone with all the energy that you bring, and I greatly appreciate you riding shotgun, because it might have just been me here just blabbering on into the ether, and people do not care for me unless I have a.
That is not true, John. Your WrestleMania 1 to 40 show, which was you on your own, was tremendous. Again, I'm very grateful to get the spot, but I know everyone will be looking forward to seeing Way and seeing how he's doing with his expanded family tomorrow. So thank you.
All right. Thank you to everyone on the site. Andrew Thompson, who had it on lock tonight, and
incredible.
Everyone. Kate and John Cena doing a great show today. Everyone at Post Wrestling. It's been a huge effort this week. It's always a super busy week, but it's a great team that has been helping out overtime all week long. So we're gonna say goodnight to everyone. We're back noon with Braden and Davey, and then immediately after WrestleMania, we will be live after night 2. So good night, and we'll chat with you after night 2.